if I could go back, I wouldn't do it differently because we wouldn't have been able to start a business. You know, you have to have so much capital to invest in inventory if you're not making it. Welcome to Life Unleashed,
the podcast all about creating the best life for you and your furry best friend.
If you're a dog mom on the go, juggling life, work, and the endless joys of being a dog parent, then you're in the right place. I'm Dani.
And I'm Nick.
And together with the incredible dog mom community from Tails Up Pup, we're here to share advice, stories, and the obsession we have over the love for our dogs.
Get ready to laugh, learn, and lean on each other because life with your dog just got even more awesome.
Nick is not ready for what I'm about to say.
What are you about to say?
My biggest regret in our business is also our biggest value and what we truly believe in, which is being a handmade business.
That is a true statement. There are so many benefits to being a handmade business and things that I love about it, but that is probably equally the most headaches about our business.
I will say the only reason that I regret it is because it's so time consuming, but it is something we have stayed true to over the years, and we've had many opportunities to turn into a non-handmade business, but it's something we truly believe in, and it's like our core value. And so while I regret it, I still wouldn't change it, and that's what we've stayed true to through it all because it's so important to us.
One thing that I think people will never understand, particularly like people that are friends, family, that type of stuff, they truly have no idea how much time goes into like the making of our products. I think they think, oh, you run an e-commerce business and you sell stuff. So, you get an order in and then you package it up and you send it out and you probably don't have to work all that much. And it's like, they don't realize how long it takes to sew all the bandanas, how long it takes to embroider all the items, and to do all the little things that are involved in truly hand making a product from scratch.
And creating one single bandana doesn't take that long, but we're not selling $100 bandana so that we can only have to sell one a day,
Right.
So the amount of bandanas that you have to make a living to support 3 people's full-time jobs is a lot more than the time that it takes to sew one bandana. So yeah, it takes, I don't know how long it takes to sew a bandana, a few minutes, whatever. And so like that in itself isn't anything that crazy, but the amount that you have to do is so time consuming, and it would be a lot easier to send it to a factory and have them mass produce them. But to us, it is not something that we wanted to do.
It's very interesting too. Like people I think are shocked by the amount of steps that's involved in creating a bandana. I mean, just quickly, it's all our bandanas start out on a piece of fabric, a bolt of fabric, and then you have to cut out the bandana.
Hand cut it.
Then you have to iron it because it can get get a little wrinkly. Then you hand iron it. Then you have to sew it. And then we're hiding the seam, so it's sewn inside out. So then you have to trim off all your little threads from sewing, and then you have to flip it. And then you have to make it nice and pointy at the end. The tip of the bandana has to be pointy, so you have to use a tool for that. Now you have to press it, make sure it's all nice and pressed. And guess what? Most of our bandanas are also personalized. So then Danielle has to, cut out all the names on a piece of vinyl, take out all the little extra pieces, heat press it on, and then this has to be packaged up and shipped out to you. That is a lot of steps for every single bandana that is leaving Tails Up Pup.
There's 2 major things: the time consuming and like how expensive it is to hand make a product, because it would be a lot cheaper if you were mass producing it, and the quality of materials that we're using. Because if you go to a place like Joann Fabrics where you could get $3 for 1 yard, the fabric that we buy now is $19 a yard. So
very high quality, very vibrant colors in the printing process.
And you can custom print it with your exclusive designs. So to us, the quality of handmade, the materials and all of that is important to us. And we, that's just what is important to us.
And, over the years, we obviously, like if you guys have followed a long time, you've seen Lauren, Keelan, all different types of people have sewn bandanas at Tails of Pup. Dani and I have not sewn every single bandana, but it's always been made by hand by somebody, that we're working closely with. And so that is one of those things that just, we never wanted to compromise that. Could you go find somebody that says, yeah, we can come up with a machine that'll make your bandanas and make it for 5 cents because a machine's doing it and a person's not doing it anymore? We've always said there's no way that we would ever want to do that.
I will just take a little trip down memory lane to explain how we got here. Nick and I did not set out. It was not something we were super passionate about in our life leading up to now. We weren't like, we want to have a handmade business. We want to do this. This is important to us. Like, it just was, that was not on our brains, and we had no idea. And it all happened by accident, by making the bandana for our dog, posting the photo, and you can listen to our whole story of how we got to where we are, but we did not set out to be a handmade business. It started off as something small, and it grew into so much more than we could have ever imagined. And so, over time we have talked about, do we want to keep making these, and how can we make this business profitable and work for us with this handmade business? But we've pivoted, we've turned, we've done everything. And I feel like it's gotten to where we are today, and we still choose to have a handmade product because it's important.
And, there's love and all of that goes into every single bandana. And I feel like you start to lose some of that when you're, just outsourcing every single thing.
Something that is nice about having a handmade product is the flexibility. And so if you watch our videos, you see a lot of bolts of fabric that aren't pre-sewn. We have more pre-sewn now because it allows us to ship faster, but we still always have fabric that is not sewn, because if someone wants something specific that's out of stock, or a different, maybe it doesn't come in a tie-on, but they want a tie-on, we can always offer those things custom for them because we are making them specifically for these people.
Right. You truly, and you just never know, like medium and larges are our most popular size, but every once in a while you'll have people be like, we sold 20 extra smalls in this one pattern. And if we had, if we didn't have the fabric or everything was pre-made, we simply couldn't do that because, you wouldn't be able to predict that, but we're able to do that with the handmade business.
Yeah. And so, inventory becomes a little bit wonky for us because we're making things and it's all coming from a bolt of fabric. But overall, the flexibility really allows you to do a lot of things and in turn make more money because you can offer something that you didn't have in stock, but you still had some and you could make it in for this person.
And we've always been passionate about not wasting fabric. And I think you waste the absolute least amount of fabric when you're, cutting every single order out of a bolt, because you can, mix and match how, I can fit an extra small here, I can fit this here and do all of that, versus if you're not doing it, is you might waste some fabric.
And same thing with embroidery. When we're not mass making all of the things, which a lot of our things are customized with names or dog pictures, but like even the In My Dog Mom era, when you're not having that mass produced, then you can put a different design. When someone's like, oh, I want the Dog Mom Varsity on the tie-dye, well, not every tie-dye has In My Dog Mom era on it. So we are able to offer lots of customizations because they're all made to order. And same thing with like even personalizing the bandanas. If someone's like, oh, I want this color, this font, people can customize that when they email us, and we would not have the option if we were not making them ourselves.
There's been various times that we've tried to like really get ahead of the curve and like have a lot of stuff pre-made, and sometimes it works out well and sometimes it doesn't. It's a lot of work up front, and if you don't, like even with the embroidery, if you pre-made a bunch of In My Dog Mom eras or whatever and in mediums, but you end up not needing that many mediums, it's like, dang, well, it's going to take longer to sell, versus you can put a bunch of different designs on it if you didn't have it pre-made.
I think we're coming into the biggest wedge, I don't know if that's the right word, like of our life of having a handmade business, because we are about to have a baby and we are very stressed about how are we going to keep up with the orders, because most people, not everyone, but a lot of people get maternity leave. And if they are a male, a lot of males actually get paternity leave these days. So in a lot of relationships, the male and the female or the partners or whoever they are having this child get a certain amount of time off from work, and they are not affected most of the time by their job. But if we are hand making our products and we are in a relationship and having a baby together, that then becomes a problem of how are we going to keep up with the orders? And we still don't truly know. I just think that we know it will be a little bit longer of a turnaround time, and hopefully in some gaps of taking care of a baby, one of us will be able to make some orders in between.
Well, the other part about that is that, the baby is going to be, I think the reason that's the most stressful is because it's going to be it's a permanent thing, and it's going to be just longer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's just way more going on with having a baby. But we've had to deal with stuff like this. It's even hard to take a vacation.
Mm-hmm.
When you're a handmade business, if you leave, stuff simply isn't getting made, so therefore orders can't ship. And so we would try sometimes to get ahead and, okay, well, this stuff we could pre-make ahead of time and get ahead for a vacation. But even then, that's still been hard. And the baby's going to be a whole different level.
And the hardest part for me is that they tell you a due date, but you don't actually know when the child is going to be here. So we are trying our best to plan around a specific date when we know in reality it could be 2 weeks before or 2 weeks after. So having a 4-week span is very stressful. And if you have been around Tails That Pup for a while, you know we usually launch our fall collection in the beginning of August. And our baby is due on August 11th. So it's like, okay, do we want to launch fall early? Or do we want to launch fall late? Do we want to launch fall when it's supposed to be? We have no idea. And because it's like, okay, if we decide we're going to go early, well, what if the baby comes early? What if we decide to go late and then the baby comes late? Like, we just have no idea. And it's kind of stressful.
It is definitely going to be tough because fall or August through December, our fall launch through Christmas is definitely the busiest. That's the busiest time of year for us, that entire
We weren't really
stretch.
Thinking about fall because the whole time I was like, I don't want to be pregnant or have a newborn baby for Christmas. But we weren't really thinking about August being like fall time.
Yeah, now you're going to have a newborn baby in the fall time, and it's still going to be very young for Christmas.
Yeah, but I think we'll be in more of a groove by Christmas.
I hope so.
Than having a brand new newborn.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. But you know what? The baby comes first, and people can wait longer for their orders, and we're just gonna have to figure it out.
Yeah, we're just going to have to figure it out.
It's going to be an adventure.
It's going to be an adventure, a sleepless adventure, and lots of probably tension between us because it's going to be like, okay, who's dealing with the baby? Who's dealing with the business? Like, how are we going to do all this in a day? And it's going to be a lot.
I feel confident that we can conquer it.
We can conquer all if we put our minds to it.
Yeah, there's so many pros of a handmade business, but I agree with what you said in the very beginning. There's so much stuff that goes into it that is just really tough. The other thing that is great about it is we are able to bring all of our custom made patterns in, and you can do this stuff for other things, but there's so many more. Like, as an example, if you want to come up with a custom pattern for a bandana and you're having other people make that, you have to buy a certain amount of, things up front. You have to buy all this stuff, so much inventory, all these things. Where for us, all we really have to do is get the artwork and have the fabric printed, and that's a much smaller investment.
I was literally going to say basically the same thing because I was going to say, if I could go back, I don't think I would do it differently. If I could start a whole new business today, in addition to Tails Up Pup, I wouldn't do a handmade business. And I always tell people, don't get into the handmade business if you don't have the time because it is so time demanding. So I think I would do it differently if I were to do it differently now. But if I could go back, I wouldn't do it differently because we wouldn't have been able to start a business. You have to have so much capital to invest in inventory if you're not making it. All we had to invest in was the $100 machine, a few yards of fabric that we got from Joann's for like $3 a yard, $5 a yard. And so our investment was so little. If we wanted to have this dog bandana business made by someone else, it would have been so much money. We didn't have it. We wouldn't have been able to do it. So I don't regret that part.
And your risk is way mitigated because investing in the fabric, yes, fabric is expensive, but compared to a finished product that you'd be buying to stock inventory, it is so much cheaper for just to buy the fabric. So if you are wrong and you buy too much, well, you can sit on that fabric longer and your investment wasn't nearly as much.
And it's not risky as risky if you're investing a lot in a product and you haven't even tested the concept, you don't know how you're going to market it and all those things, then you are risking a lot of your money that you just invested because you don't know if it's going to sell or how you're going to sell it.
And, if you're buying something or if you're trying to create something that's like a unique product to you with your own specific designs and things like that, most places out there have pretty high minimums. And so the only way that I feel like we have a gauge for that is when we go and talk to people that is not even custom stuff, like at like the Global Pet Expo and things like that. Some of those places minimums or whatever, if you're gonna, be like, we just want to have our own logo on something, not even truly custom, they can get pretty high for the minimums.
Yeah.
And like that means that you're having to invest thousands, tens, maybe even $100,000 in inventory of something that you may not even have tried out yet. And you have to pay taxes on your inventory. I know in Georgia, I don't know every single place, but if you're wrong and that sits around longer, you're having to pay taxes on it.
Which is not fun.
Not fun. And so there's just so many benefits. There's so many pros, I think, for starting out specifically for a handmade business. The barrier to entry is a lot lower. Now, one of the cons, and you've talked about this a lot before, guess what? Dani had no idea how to sew. Dani had no idea how to embroider. So you have to teach yourself a skill.
And I thought you were going to say a con is scaling your business.
Well, it definitely is. I think we've tried to figure out how to. When we had the office and more employees, we really were doing that. But it's always a pro and con thing. It's like if things are busy and you can scale up and scale up. But the problem is with people. Is if things get slower, you still have to pay them when it's slow. And so that is always a hard thing to balance. And I think every business struggles with that.
And when you're starting out, you're like, okay, I can sew a few dog bandanas a day and, I have the time to do that. But all of a sudden, hopefully you want your business to grow to some extent. And will you have the time to make those products as you grow, and at what point? And then do you have to cut it off and say, I don't want to grow anymore? Or are you going to hire someone? Can you afford to hire someone who also will be making these products? You have to think about all these things about the long-term future, which is why it's good to sit down and have a business plan and have 1 year, 2 year, 3 year goals of what you want to be. If you're saying, I want to be $1 million business, but you don't have the time to create all those products, how are you going to afford to get to the $1 million business and pay people to help you get there?
One thing, if I could go back, a huge lesson that I've learned is it's almost always better to be busting at the seams, being busier than you can handle for quite a while before you take that next step. We've had times where we've done both. When we hired our first person, we really needed that person to help. But then later on, there's other times where it's like, oh, let's just expand because we'll need it. And, we probably expanded too fast at different times.
And there's the option of like extending your turnaround time, but you do have to be mindful of people's expectations. If you're like a 3-week turnaround time and you're trying to sell something for specific events and then people don't plan that far ahead, that could be a problem. But you do have some wiggle room. Like, at the end of the day, people do kind of expect what Amazon does of 2-day shipping. But if you make it clear that it's a week or 2 weeks, whatever, then, you have that option.
I do feel like people give you a little bit more leeway with the handmade business. I at least feel like as long as we're hitting, a pretty decent turnaround time, we've never really had too much of a problem with people complaining too much.
Once we made it very clear, both on the website and in the confirmation email on how long it takes to get your item, we rarely ever get a question, barely ever a complaint, but we used to get a ton of questions about like, when's my order shipping? Like, we made it very clear. And so now people's expectations are there. And if we can exceed it and ship earlier, people are very excited. But if we even are just on time, like, that's what they were expecting.
The other thing that you have to balance more with the handmade business and with like just turning around and shipping a product is when you get really busy, you literally not only have to ship all that stuff, but you have to make it all. And so it's like this interesting, I know when we've had like really viral videos or really busy times, it's like you're so excited, but then the kind of the stress sets in of like, oh my gosh, now we have to make all of these bandanas or all of these embroidered items. And I know, like, I follow some other businesses when they have Black Friday, they're like, oh man, here comes the flood, and they're just taking an item and putting it in a box and shipping it. We're having to do 10 times that amount of work. We're having to truly hand make these items and get it out to ship. And that is just a whole different level of stress and hard work to do it.
For us, we've also learned that batch making is more effective. Now, if you're only getting 2 orders a day, then this probably wouldn't work for you. But even if you're getting like 10 orders a day and you just have a few options on your website, getting the fabric out to make a certain pattern like every hour, it just is a waste of your time and you're never going to get anything else done. Where if you wait like every 2 days, then you could cut all the football ones at the same time and all of the dolphin ones at the same time and not be wasting so much time getting things out and just making one thing at a time.
I think we've really become experts with like batching everything that we do.
So the routine that we have now is we make a list to cut bandanas every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then on Tuesday, Thursday, we're either finishing those orders from the day before or we're working on computer or marketing or some other task. So it just depends. Like if we were super busy and we had bandanas and we couldn't finish them all on the Monday, it falls into Tuesday.
Right, yeah. Sometimes that does change based on like if it's, I feel like during Black Friday time, it's like we're making bandanas
no rules.
Right, no, all the rules go out the window and like you have to find times to do the other stuff. But as a business owner, you have to wear so many different hats. And if you're a handmade business, you now have less time to do those other tasks that also have to get done. So you have to figure out when you're going to squeeze that stuff in. And I think we've gotten really good at that. It's like a lot of times during the busy season, we'll like, all right, well, we will cut and flip bandanas at night, maybe put on a movie or something to do it when, that doesn't take a lot of brain activity during that time. Well, I have to pay taxes, so I'm going to do that in the morning when I'm fresh.
And I will say that there are going to be things that you don't enjoy doing in a handmade business or in a business that you work for someone else or any type of business. Like there's always going to be things that you don't like to do and you're just going to have to do them. Like that's just life. And so like Nick doesn't enjoy doing the taxes, but he has to do them. So,
well, it was really funny. I was giving I was talking to some high school students at my old high school, and they were like, one of the kids asked, are you really passionate about what you do? And I said, well, I'm not passionate about everything I do, but overall what I do, I'm extremely passionate about. But just to tell you the truth, I'm not the most passionate about making dog bandanas, but that's part of the job. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not that passionate about paying taxes and doing those things, but you got to do it. But the overall thing and the impact that we get to make by being owners of Tails Up Pub, I love that. And so in totality, I love what I do. But I think any job is going to be that way. There's pieces that you're not going to love doing, and they have to be done.
People dream of quitting their job, of working for someone else to do their own thing because they think it's magical, and there are magical parts about it, but at the end of the day, there's going to be things that you don't like to do in any job. And so you have to keep that in mind. And even like people who look at us and they're like, oh, you're living my dream. It's like, that's great. And like, we're also living our dream, but we don't show parts that we don't like or that, taxes are boring. Like cutting bandanas, like we show that sometimes, but at the end of the day, that's sometimes boring too.
After you've made your 100,000th bandana.
Have you hit it yet?
As a company, we have. I haven't hit mine personally, but there's been a lot that I've made.
But I think I probably made more than you.
Probably. You've definitely not cut more than me.
No.
So I think I've touched the most bandanas out of anyone.
I would believe that.
Because I
don't know. I ship them.
You do?
I touch them.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. I mean, with Inslee helping you, Connor that was helping me. Yeah. I don't know. It's close.
It's probably a wash.
Yeah. The other thing too about like, this is getting a little bit on a tangent, but when you own your, like, I work way more than 40 hours a week, and I think a lot of people see like the business owner life and they see like the cool parts of it and what you can do, but in reality, like we work more than we would work at full-time jobs.
Oh, even yesterday, like if you knew everything we did in the day, like we went on a walk at 2:00 and people were like, wow, like they got to go on a walk in the middle of the day. Like they're living life. Like, no, Nick was in the basement working until like 8:45.
Yeah. I was sewing bandanas till 8:45.
So we took our break in the middle of the day, but then had to do the work later.
Right. And I think this just comes down to like knowing like your personality. I would much rather work for myself and have to do those things than to go in from a 9 to 5 and do that. And that's just me though. And that's not meaning.
Personally, I think I would rather work for someone else and work the 9 to 5 because it is less stressful.
I feel like you say that, but at the same time, I think you've kind of like...
You're like, at the same time, you're here and you're not working for someone else, so...
But I feel like you thrive in the a business owner,
Am I thriving?
Yeah, I think you are.
I don't know. It's one of those things like when people are like, how are you so successful? It's like, I don't feel successful. I don't like, there's so much more we want to accomplish. So it's hard. Like I guess I'm in the fishbowl and people are on the outside and it's like, oh, other people are seeing it differently than we are. But I guess I'm thriving. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it is hard. I think that's one of the things that makes us good at what we do, but is also tough. We're always moving the goalpost. Mm-hmm. It's like getting further and further away. I think if we looked back, the first year of starting Tails Up Pup and said, this is where you're going to be, I think you'd be super happy.
Yeah, I am.
But I think we're always chasing the next thing.
I think it's just like anything else. There's pros and cons in every situation. And so there's pros and cons to having a handmade business and there's pros and cons to not having a handmade business. And you have to choose like what's more important to you, what you want to accomplish, how much money you have, how much time you have, like what values you have, all of those things.
One thing that I think goes along with the handmade business that I think particularly in the beginning, but I think this goes all along business, is big companies have a very hard time competing with a handmade personalized business. A lot of times I think people that are hand making stuff also add like a level of personalization to it, and a massive company, it's really hard to scale at a huge level, personalization or hand making, but definitely personalization. And so you really don't have to, you can kind of create your own little space in the market that not as many people are going to be, particularly the big guys, aren't going to be competing in, which is something that we found.
If you look at Target, they're not personalizing dog bandanas they sell because they wouldn't be able to keep up with that as they scale. And for us, like our goal isn't to be a $20 million company. Our goal is to be less than that, or we wouldn't be able to keep up with it either. And like to us, the personalization and the handmade part is more important to us, and we can thrive and be successful at a smaller scale because we are a smaller business. So yeah.
And I think that's a hard thing though, like for particularly the corporate world to like, and people with that mindset to understand, is we're not in it to try to make the absolute most money and be the biggest that we can. We want to, stay true to like our beliefs, and when we do that, whatever size we get to, that's okay. It doesn't have to be this massive company.
Which like answers the question of all people always saying like, oh, go on Shark Tank. Why don't you go on Shark Tank? It's like they would tell us to do it so differently. There's no way they can scale. How are they going to make their money back? Like it just doesn't make sense for what we're trying to do. So
yeah, our heart is so in Tails Up Pup, and like our personality, just everything about it. It's like we want to do it that way, and if that means that we're a much smaller business, that's okay with us. That's what we want to do. We're not going out here trying to be the biggest that we can be. I think we want to affect the most of people that we can, but we want to do it in the right way. Mm-hmm. We're not just out here trying to, just sell bandanas or just sell embroidered items. There's so much more that goes into it than that. So Dani, going back, you would do it again the same way?
I would. We wouldn't have ever started if we weren't a handmade business. And the scaling part was really hard for us in the thick of it. But overall, we've learned who we want to be, what we want to do, how we're going to do it. And I think that this is the best thing for us. I think, again, the most stressful thing is adding a newborn into the mix, but we're going to figure it out just like we always do.
Yeah. If you're going to get into the handmade business, be prepared to do a lot of hard work. It's really, it's manual work. You're sitting there and doing it.
When I watch other businesses and like see them thriving on what it looks like through social media, I'm like, it's so much easier because they're just having to grab something off a shelf and put it in a bag and ship it off, and they didn't have to like work that hard for it. But I think that's why we have so much pride and so much passion for what we do, because we are putting our heart and soul into each product, which like gives us that extra oomph in it.
But they had to take all that risk and buy all that inventory.
True.
Yeah, there's pros and cons.
All
these, and it depends on the business. I mean, I think we have a friend that, I wouldn't say friend, but we know we have a good acquaintance that makes really nice furniture, and so that's a super like high end handmade thing. And could he have said, what, I want to try to come up with like IKEA-like type thing that just boom, 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 and I can mass produce these? Sure, but he said, I want to go the ultra, nice artisan way of making furniture, and maybe he's selling a few pieces a year, but that's what he likes, and he's doing it.
Well, we just want to end it by saying thank you for supporting our small handmade business, for finding passion and value in our personalized products, because we wouldn't be here without you guys. And we just wanted to say thank you.
And we love all of you. And everyone that's been along from the very beginning all the way to people that are just joining now, you really mean the world to all of us.
Thank you. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.